Okay, and I think you guys hear those little messages with that woman speaking, but mics are muted, and I do have the recording started. So for those of you that want to come back and view this later, I'll get those links up. Typically, I get that up the next day, possibly today. I can even get it up later tonight, but we'll see how the afternoon goes. But this is scheduling rounds. It's a new course, first time that we've offered it. But hold on one second. We have Don is chatting me. Just one second. I'm going to just see if we can get one more of our students here that can't hear. I'm sorry for the delay there, folks. I'm just going to see if we can get one more person to get in here with sound before we get started. Okay, I think I chatted that back to Don. Don, if you're not able to get the sound at all, be sure to let me know after the course. We can work something out there. So hopefully you can call into that number and enter the code and get you in there. So hopefully Don can join us there. So again, sorry about that. Just want to make sure we take care of as many of you as we can. So again, this is scheduling rounds, and so this course is really designed just to kind of show you the rounds page. A lot of you work there. Some of you have never gone there to make adjustments, and so this is a good course to kind of give you kind of an overview and to show you some of the, I guess, most common things that we see there, and some common things that either come up as things that can help you, or on the other end of it, when we see people running into trouble, the rounds page is a place where we can sometimes identify what's going on there too. So very critical area, the rounds page is, and hopefully we can cover some of that here today. So I just want to show you the tournament. I'm actually working in this tournament, Open Tournaments 102, same tournament that some of you have seen us work in before. But I just want to show you the basic setup. And if I go to my groups and divisions here, you see I have a whole bunch of groups and divisions for the other courses that we teach. But I have this group that I have added just for this course called Scheduling Rounds, which is kind of a weird name, but it probably is going to work for us. Within that group, I also have 3 weight classes. I have a weight class called 8, one called 16, and one called 32. And obviously, those of you that know about the rounds page, you can kind of tell where I'm going with this. But I also have an 8-man bracket, a 16, and a 32. And I just use those weight classes to identify the number of wrestlers and then how big those brackets are. So the rounds page comes in really handy, especially with those of you that run tournaments that have multiple bracket types. And so if I go to my bracket types and show you these, that is in fact what I have. I have an 8-man, I have a 16-man, and I have a 32-man. And it's all the similar bracket. So wrestle back to second, place 6. It wouldn't necessarily matter which, I guess, format or type of bracket that you use. If you're running multiple brackets, we're going to get into combining rounds and kind of organizing your rounds page as kind of a habit or maybe a best practice. But again, anytime you have, it could be you have 4-man and 5-man and 3-man round robins or something like that. In my case, we're just going to use these 3 brackets. And again, as we go through there, if you bear in mind, oh, that's the wrong one. If you bear in mind that it's kind of based on the size of our brackets here. So again, we just have an 8, a 16, and a 32. And then once I add those bracket types, as you see here, I add these, and then we're going to get to the rounds page that will show you all of these rounds that are scheduled on the rounds page. And again, there are times we have people that run tournaments with multiple bracket types and they never come to this rounds page. And the truth is, a lot of times that's probably okay. The system should kind of put things in an order. That's going to work in most situations. But what happens is this rounds page becomes pretty daunting. There's, in our case, 21 actual rounds. And you might say, well, no, there wouldn't be 21 rounds in a tournament with, you know, the biggest bracket being a 32-man. This is, of course, the rounds that are broken out for each particular bracket type. So again, 32-man has, I think, something like 8 rounds. Maybe it's 7 or 9, something like that. But then if you add all those up, of course, then we get so many rounds. So this page becomes really hard to kind of work with. So we're going to get to combining that in just a minute. It will put it, our system will put this in a default order, and it's going to try and start with the largest bracket and then work its way down through. It's also going to kind of space out any of those smaller brackets. So if I were to have like a 3-man round robin, typically our system is going to kind of space those out. Sometimes people like to put those up towards the top. You want to get as many brackets done as you can early on in a tournament. That's up to you. That's more personal preference than anything. But again, from the rounds page, you can change that, you can adjust that, and go from there. So this is kind of the default order. I will point out too that if you ever get to a point where you're kind of messing around on the rounds page and you get things, kind of so jumbled up that you're not quite sure where you are, if you come back and delete out your bracket types and add them back in, it'll just take everything back to the default. So that's always something to keep in mind. You don't want to do that after you've built brackets because you'll lose all of the data. Wrestlers will stay, but all the results and everything will get changed. But again, you can always go back and make that changes. Just delete out the bracket types, add them back in, and it'll put things kind of back in order. And then the other thing, a couple of the kind of basic overview things in this dropdown, the save round order. Once I make a change on this page, if I were to go and say maybe go look at my bout schedule or go to a number schemes or something, if I didn't use the save round order, then everything that I made here, any changes I made here rather, wouldn't be saved. So I always want to save round order anytime I leave this page after I've made a change. And then the other thing is, if any of you have worked with us on the rounds page when you're making changes there, we don't see any changes there until you save that round order. So if you've ever worked with us on the rounds page, I know that I always ask people, okay, can you save that round order? And that way it updates so we can see it on our end. So just keep that in mind if we're ever helping you on a phone call or something. So that's the save round order. The combined selected rounds, we're going to get to that in just a minute. Delete selected rounds, that's pretty obvious. If there was a round in here that you didn't want to run, you could delete it out. That's not necessarily used very often, but there are some cases where we'll use that. We're probably not even going to cover that just because it's pretty rare to have to do that. But then the auto round order, what that basically does is if I want to move a round up and down, and I'll show you how to move these just a little bit, then I'll show you how to order these back. If I wanted to, there's two kind of move areas right here. If I wanted to move this whole round, let's say that for some reason I wanted my round 1 of my 16-man to go before round 1 of my 32-man. I'm not sure why you do that, but if there was a case that you would, I could just use this arrow over here to move my 32-man down, and it places it back, or places it down around. Of course, then it moves the 16-man up. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but if I came to the auto round orders and I put this back and I type go, it's going to move everything kind of back to the way I wanted it. So I can move things around without being too scared. Again, always know that if you delete out your bracket types and add them back in, it's going to take you back kind of to, I guess, square one based on how our defaults go. What I can also do is there's some combining functions that you can do with these arrows. You can move around. This might make more sense in a little while, and typically actually I don't use these arrows as much as I use the combine rounds, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. But let's say that, for instance, I wanted my quarterfinals, this round right here, my 8-man wrestleback second bracket, and I wanted these quarterfinal matches, IDs 1 through 4. Let's say I wanted them to run in this round. I could use this little arrow and bump it back up, and I just type move up there. And it would move it up into this round. So in essence, we're going to have this round that doesn't really have anything in it. And so that's the case where you might do this and delete the selected round. I'm not going to do that today. I'm actually going to move this back to kind of put it where it was, just to show you how this works again. I can move that down into that round. In that case, I'm going to type move down, I spell it right. and that should put it back in here. So in essence, we're back kind of to square one. So those are some ways to move rounds around a little bit kind of quickly. The more common thing that we see on the rounds page, a couple of things. Bear in mind that what you see on that rounds page is really going to impact, it's going to impact a few things, but the two big ones are going to be the way that your bouts are scheduled. So if you ever come to the bout schedule and you look here, and again, I have, if we remember, I've built those 3 brackets. If I come to my schedule, you're going to see that my 32 man is going first, and then it's going to my 16, then it's going to work on through. So that's going to relate back to the rounds page. If I made some changes on that, it's going to affect, if I made some changes on the rounds page, it's going to affect how my bouts are scheduled. So that's going to play a big role in there too. The other thing that it's going to affect is my number schemes. And so when you change the rounds page, our number schemes look at that rounds page in order to number those bouts as well. So we'll get to this later, but I do have a number scheme called scheduling rounds here, and I'm just going to apply that to that one particular group. And so we'll come back to this bout schedule a few times today, but I do want to let you know. So I can just show you this real quickly. So let's go back to that example where I had my 32 and I wanted to bump that down. Again, I don't know how that makes sense, but we can show you here. If I go to the rounds and I move this again, so now you see that I have first round of my 32. If I save that round order, and then now if I go back to my bout schedule, you'll see that that round of 16 actually goes first. Okay, so again, I think it's important for people to understand the correlation between that rounds page and how these are scheduled here. All right, so I'm going to go back to rounds. I'm going to move this one back up. I'll save the round order. And then now that'll be back as we expected it. So that's kind of the basics there. And again, the two things that it impacts most for people would be the number schemes, if you're seeing bout numbers that are not being put on brackets as you would expect, or if you're seeing bouts come up at kind of weird times. There might be times where people were moving things in here, and we had this just over the weekend. We had all the 6-man round robins were in rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and all those bouts got scheduled right away. Really easy fix. We just auto-ordered these rounds and put it all back, and everything was in order. But again, rounds page is where we look quite often. And the two main things that we probably run into, and the two things that we want to cover more in depth right now, is combining rounds to make more sense of this. So right now when I look at this and I see 21 rounds, that's a lot for me to wrap my brain around, and it's sometimes hard to know what match is coming where. So we're going to work on combining rounds to make that better. And then we're also going to break out these placement matches. Another item that comes up quite often is you want to run maybe your 5th place matches, and then your 3rd place matches, and then your 1st place matches. And so we'll cover that here too as well. So the big thing you want to do is have a good plan going in, and most of you do. Most of you in this situation where we have an 8, a 16, and a 32-man bracket, you know kind of how you want that tournament to run. And in my mind, and then for this tournament, I'm going to try and kind of align the rounds. And so basically what I mean is I'm going to get my 32-man down to 16 before I run my 16s. And then when we get down to the 8, we're going to start bringing the 8s in. So we want to run our biggest brackets first, and then we want to combine our rounds in order to do that in a logical way. So for me, my first round, I'm going to have just my 32s. And if I click on this round, I'm just going to rename this round 1. I'm going to take 32-man out of there, and I'm going to save the round detail, and it just says round 1. Okay, you can name these whatever you want. Like I said, my personal preference is to make these real basic. I know that if I look at round 1 and I want to know what rounds and what brackets are wrestling in it, I can look down here, and this is important information. I tend to look a lot at what's in the parentheses as well. So I know that on 32, this is championship round 1. I don't necessarily, well, I guess 1 through 16 would make sense to me. But when we get to numbers like 33, 36, 39, those numbers don't mean much to us when you're in the middle of the tournament. But I do know what championship round 1 means. So again, I would suggest and maybe encourage you to look at those items in the parentheses there. The other thing, next round that I want to do is I'm going to combine, and I'm going to have my round 1 of my 16 and I'm actually going to go round 2 of my 32, and then this wrestle back round. So I have this and this, and I'm going to combine selected rounds. So I put check marks next to the 2 that I want, combine selected rounds, and then I'm just going to name this round 2. And I click OK, and that moves there. Now, it might not always move to the right place that you want it, but we know that that's an easy thing to fix as well. My third round then, I'm going to come back probably with another round of my 32s. This is a big bracket. I want to get these guys moving out of here. So I'm going to move this one up, and I'm going to put this right here. And then what I'm going to do at this point is save the round order. So I click on Save Round Order. And then now what I have, and I probably rename this one too. So I click here, and I'd probably name this just round 3. I click Save Round Order, Save Round Detail. And now I've got round 1, round 2, and round 3. And this is making pretty good sense so far. So the next one that I'd probably want to do is I'm down to my quarterfinals. And so again, this is where it's helpful to look in the parentheses to find where these quarterfinals are. So here's my quarters of my 8-man. Here's my quarters of my 16. And then if I come down here, you'll also see there's the quarters of my 32. And I check mark those 3, combine selected rounds, and this is going to be round 4, and then I might even put quarters in there. Again, however you want to number those is just fine. And so now again, round 1, 2, 3, I've got round 4, I know those are my quarters. And also I maybe on here I'd also put and wrestlebacks. Again, just to know that it's not just a round of the championship side. We've always got, or we also have the back side going there as well. Round 5 then, I would look for the second round of my consolations in my 16. So if I can find those. So my 16s, here's consolation round 2. And then I'm also looking then for what would be in the 32s, consolation round 4, which is right here. So I'm going to combine those 2 rounds. And on that one then, this is going to be round 5. And then this is really it's really a second round of one and a fourth round of another. And in that one, you see how it didn't get placed in the right spot. So I'm just going to move that up, save the round order. And now we got 5 rounds. And so now what you're seeing happen here is this is a more manageable way to kind of take a look at your tournament. We're all the way through 4 rounds, got our quarters, we ran another round of our consolation side, and now we're ready for our semis. So I'm going to look back here in the parentheses, go to semis here, and semis there. Again, 3 bracket types. I want to run all my semis together. I'm going to combine those. I'm going to call this, which would be round 6. It's going to be semis and wrestlebacks. So again, I know that in that round I've got winners and losers both going. That one came in order there, so that's good. Round 7 then, I actually have my consolation semis. So I'm going to check this one, and we also have it in our 32. I can combine those. And again, you can see here how it's really important to have a good plan going in. So this is going to be round 7. Consi semis. Combine those. And then now we're kind of down to our placement matches. So as an example, if I just wanted to run all my placement matches kind of together, I would go placement, placement, and placement. And I can combine those. And I would call this placements. And then I would probably do the same thing with my, this bracket actually happens to have a second place match, like a true second. And in this bracket, you would only, well, that bout would only get scheduled if you needed it. And so this one, I'm going to call this true second. But you can call it whatever you want. Some people call that challenge match. Some, lots of different ways to do that. So now if I go ahead and save this round order, again, my plan, I've kind of put into place here. I've got my rounds scheduled. I've got 9 actual rounds to this tournament, so that makes a little more sense to me. And so now if I go over to my bout schedule, I can see how this is starting to align in the bout schedule. So again, I've got my round ones. It's probably easier to look right here. I've got round ones. Come back, I've got my placements. Finally, I've got my true second matches there. So if I went in and applied my number scheme now, go to number schemes, I'm just going to apply this scheduling round scheme, apply selected rounds. Can leave it as it is because I haven't applied any yet. And then now when I go back to my bout schedule, you'll see that these will get numbered consecutively. And so that would be kind of a, I guess probably a good way, a logical way, and a real common way to go ahead and do your rounds. The one thing that happens in this is I go ahead and I look at my brackets. What some people like to do, and this is probably most people like to do, right now I've got all my placement matches kind of going at the same time. Maybe I want to send some to one mat and some to another. If I go to operating and look at printing and brackets, and again, there's a lot of ways to look at brackets, and I just want to print these to show you. You'll notice that in my brackets, my first bout on this bracket isn't until 49, and that's because it's a small bracket. The way that this is going to get numbered is going to start with my first 32. It's going to run all the way through this 16. Then it's going to come back with the second round with 17 in the next bracket, and so on. But when we get to the placement matches, you'll notice here that I have my first place match here at about 95. My third place is 96, fifth place is 97, and then we go down here to 98. What I might want to do is run all of my fifth places first. And I can do that by breaking these placement matches out, the placement rounds rather. So if I come back to the rounds page, I'm actually going to take this round that I combined and actually break it out. And I can do that by looking at the match ID numbers of those brackets. So what you'll want to do on this is have your bracket open, actually a sample bracket open, and I can take a look at that at any of these. If I come here, I go to placements, and I take a look, and right now for the 8-mans, I've got 11 through 13 going. But what I would want to do is pull out, and for my fifth place match, I would only want to use about 13. For my 16, I would only want to use about 27. And I could just break that out like that. So I can do one of those kind of quickly here for you. I actually don't know those match ID numbers. I had intended to write those down, but I didn't. But we can do this. So on this rounds page, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to add a round, and I'm just going to call this championships, or maybe I'll call it first place. I'm going to add that round, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to identify what match ID number I want in here. And so for my 8-man, for first place match, I'll just open the sample. I want bout number 11. So I put 11 in there. In my 32-man, my first place match is 59. So I put 59. And then in my, that's not what I wanted. Sorry about that. I've got those two. And in my 16-man, number 29. 29. So I'm going to pull out of the other ones, 11, 59, 29. So I save that. Now you'll notice that in here I've got some red. And that really is because I have about 29 here, but I also have it here. And we knew that because I just created that round. I want to come back to this round and then just delete out 29, 59, and 11. So I just click on placements. And I just pulled those three out of there. And then if I save that round detail, now I should have it to where there's no more red. And you'll notice that in my placements, I only have my third and my fifth place match. I want to move this one up because I need my championship matches next. And then I can save that round order. And I save that. And now you see that this makes more sense. Maybe I want my third and my fifths to go at the same time. And then I'm going to come back and run my championships all on their own. Of course, I'd need that true second at the end. But now if I come to my bout schedule, you'll see that the way that this gets ordered, my placements go, then my first places, and then my true seconds. And then because I've already numbered this, you'll notice that these bout numbers get out of order. I would just come back to number schemes, apply just that scheme, and unfreeze it. And now, if I go to my bout schedule, those bout numbers should all be in order. So that all looks good. And so that's how you can kind of renumber. You can adjust on the rounds page. There's a lot of things that that you can do there. The bout numbers are definitely affected by that, and so you always want to make sure that after you number something, check that bout schedule, make sure that everything looks like they're in the correct order. If not, you can renumber. Again, when you renumber, like I did that last time, when you apply that, you just want to make sure that if you're kind of overwriting what you already did, that you unfreeze the existing bout numbers, and then you should be able to get things kind of numbered in the way that you want it as well. So again, back to that rounds page, just as an overview of what we did, and this is really common, kind of the two biggest things that people either want to do or maybe try to do and they kind of mess up. Again, aligning your tournament based on how you want it, and it's really common to kind of look at these items in parentheses here. The one thing too that's kind of maybe a trick that in between the 16 and the 32, which are two common bracket types, the consolation rounds are always 2 off. So if you see that in this round we had consolation round 2, here we have 1 and 3, here we have 2 and 4, here we have 3 and 5. So that's another way to kind of help you align that. But again, what you'd want to do is print out all those brackets, the bracket types ahead of time, see what your plan is, and then just kind of adjust your rounds page from there. And then again, the other area is breaking out those placement matches. In essence, all you do is create a new round, and in our case we called it place, or first place, and then you just pick those match IDs, and you can kind of run from there. And again, looking at the parentheses here definitely is helpful. So that is kind of the basic overview. That's our course on the rounds page, how to make adjustments there. I guess it's really important too, and I can't stress enough that what you do on this round page affects a lot of other places in your tournament. So make sure that you kind of know what you're doing. If you're making changes here, make sure you do it on the testing site first. Test it out, make sure that what you want to happen is actually happening. And then, of course, let us know if you do have questions on this. We're happy to help you out there. So I think at this point, I'm going to open up the mics again. If you guys have questions, I would be happy to stick around and answer those for you. Okay, so the mics are back open. Again, I know some of you were asking earlier about how long that course was. Again, that's kind of I guess the presentation part of it too, but if there are questions now, you guys can ask questions. I'll stick around and answer those for you at this point. If those of you if there's anybody that needs to leave, go ahead and sign out. You're welcome to do that. And if I don't get a chance to talk to you before you guys sign out, thanks for joining. We do appreciate you guys taking the time and effort to go through these courses with us.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So I have to go through for, say, a varsity tournament and delete people that didn't make weight, and sometimes pick the 32-man versus 16-man depending on how many people actually showed up versus what they said were going to show up.
Okay.
Can I make this plan beforehand, or do I have to do it after I've done it all?
Nope. No, absolutely. I would absolutely do it beforehand. And that's maybe a good question. So let's say that I'm going into my tournament and I've selected the 8, the 16, and the 32, and maybe my big is now it's not over. Maybe I don't need that 32. Maybe 15 or 16 is my biggest bracket. When I go to schedule or build these brackets, if I go back to the rounds page, if you didn't build anything on a 32, our system will just skip that and go on to the next one. So there's nothing wrong with adding that larger bracket to kind of, I guess, in anticipation of having that bigger weight class. So I would say the short answer is I would always do this well ahead of time and test it out, make sure it works okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, prelims.
Uh-huh.
How do they fit in, for prelims?
Yeah, you bet. So
okay, now say you you got 16-man brackets all in there, and all of a sudden you see you need 1 or 2 more. Can you go and add prelims in your settings and pop them in there?
Yeah, yeah, you bet. So what you would do then actually, and it actually relates here too. So let's just do that. If I go to setup, and in our case here, I guess the theory behind this tournament was, of course, the larger brackets we'd run on the, or larger weights we'd run on the larger. But if you needed a prelim in the setups under settings, I would go and flip this, and I'm not sure if this is even flipped in this tournament or not. It is
It is.
flipped. So then I would go into prelims. I could assign these if we want. We're not going to get into assignments. On the prelims, just I guess maybe as an overview, our prelims are going to get assigned randomly, and they're going to get spaced on opposite halves, quarters, eighths of the bracket, depending on how many of them you have. So all you need to really do is set them up. If you don't make an assignment, they're just going to be drawn randomly, so everybody will have the same opportunity of getting one. But then what you would do, and I think what you're asking them, Paul, is I would add a round, and I would call that prelim round 1. And then in this page, and this is the one that pops up, I'm going to switch these to, I could add those to all of these brackets, to some of them, whatever the case might be. Let's just say for the sake of argument, I didn't have, a 32 and a 16, and I was just running an 8-man tournament, and I had 10 guys or something, and I wanted to run prelims. I would go prelim match IDs, and then the prelim match IDs are going to be, in this case, 1 through 4. It's going to be basically half of the number here because that's the max that you could have. So if you had 4 prelims, we would cover them all. So I go 1 through 4. If it was the 16, I would go 1 through 8, and then I would go prelim match IDs on the 32, 1 through 16. And again, this is stuff that a lot of times we do for people, but just let us know if you have any questions here. But again, make sure you flip that to prelim match IDs. I would save that round detail, but you'll notice that it gets added on the bottom. So of course this would go first. So I just click move, hit 1, and then this would get moved to the top. So it goes prelim round 1. I would save that. And then I would add my next prelim round, because our prelims are typically double elimination. So I go prelim round 2. And it's going to be the same kind of situation, only in this case, the prelim match IDs are going to start with 51. And that's a programming issue kind of on the back side, but on this, I would go 51 to 54. This, of course, is still going to be 16, so it's going to be 51 to 66. And prelim match IDs here, it's going to be 51 through 58. And I save that, and of course that's going to be added down here at the bottom. Oh, too far down, at the bottom again. So in that case, I guess I would probably run that after the first round of everybody. This is a little bit weird, but I would move this back up probably in, depending on which bracket types I was using it in. So this is a little bit awkward, but I would probably put it in here something like at number 5, so it comes in after that. Nope, actually it would be at number 4, where it'd come in after the championship rounds there. So I'd probably move these just a little bit. I wasn't prepared, so I'd probably want to look at the brackets and see where those would go. If you're using just one bracket type, they're going to go, the prelim rounds are going to go 1 and 3. So you're going to have your prelim round, you're going to do your first round of your bracket, and then you're going to come back with the second prelim round. It gets a little bit more gray as you add bracket types, and we've combined rounds there. So. But that's how you would add those. And then now our system will schedule any prelims when they're necessary, and only if they're necessary. But again, related to the rounds page too. That's a good question, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for out of this, actually.
Okay, good. Once you flip, so there's an FAQ on that too that you'll see, and it's, again, prelims aren't real common. But there is an FAQ that kind of shows you that and tells you what numbers to use and all that stuff too. So, but again, always just let us know. We can help you add those or show you how to add them again or something like that.
Okay. And in settings.
Again, I'm not sure if that's exactly the place I would go with that, but in a pinch, we'll put it at 4. All right. In settings.
I was thinking you would just add it to the largest one and probably put it at 3.
You probably would. Yeah, you probably would. So depending on how you want to run those. So yeah. Yes, you're probably right, and probably just go there, I guess. And then I would probably only add it to the 32 there as well. So
yeah, okay.
But that's probably how you do that.
Now in settings, there's go to settings for a second.
Sure.
Okay. I went to look at it and it was in a dual meet. I couldn't see it. There was something where it says.
Is it the bout order one?
Yeah, the bout order one.
Yep, I can touch on that kind of quickly. So the setting that Paul
bout order, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right there. Yes or no?
Yep.
What does that do?
I can show you. So again, this is really very seldomly used. But if I flip that to yes, you're going to notice that in the setup menu, you're going to get this bout order. It's probably in the left menu too. Yeah, it's there. But in the setup menu for sure. In the bout order. And what this is really doing is it's showing which match IDs are getting ordered, or how the match IDs are getting scheduled. And so, for instance, if I looked at, well, let's find one that maybe makes. And this one's a little bit. So again, this scenario is a little bit different because we've got so many different bracket types. But let me just do this as a for instance. Let's say that I wanted to number and schedule, for that matter, my bouts backwards. So let's look at this. Round 2. Those are prelim round 2. Okay, so let's look at this round 2, where it comes in right here. Right now, match ID 1 is going to be scheduled and numbered first. Match ID 2, second. Match ID 3, third, and so on. And these numbers right here are relative. So they're all 33. So our system is going to look at the match ID. And again, think of this as your 8-man from top to bottom. I'm sorry, 16-man from top to bottom, because there's 8 bouts there. If I wanted to reverse them, all I need to do is take this number and make it, again, relatively lower than the other ones. So I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now if I save that, which actually I'm not going to, only because I've got so many other things going on within this tournament, but now these bouts would get scheduled backwards. That example probably isn't as common as something like when you get to, say, the semis. So let's look at the semis, and this is our 16, yeah. So when I get to the semis, you'll see that right now 17 and 20 get scheduled before 23 and 24. And again, knowing that these are relative numbers. This one's lower, so it's going to get scheduled before these. But if I wanted maybe to schedule I'm assuming that these are the consolate, or that wrestleback round. If I wanted these to come first, I could switch that to like 37, or whatever the number might be, as long as it's lower than 38. And then now you've essentially changed the order that your bouts are being scheduled. And then again, as they get scheduled, then when you apply your number schemes, that's also going to change how they get numbered. So some people call it numbering inside out, where you want to, order one side of the bracket, number one side of the bracket before the other, or something like that. But that's a term that's out there, and people call it numbering inside out. We see that sometimes.
Okay, now changing that to 37, does that conflict with 37 that might be in another round?
No, I don't think so. No, it won't. It won't. It's within this round. It's within this round. If I went to the rounds page, and let's say, as the example, remember how that true second was the last round? You can see where these are actually directly related to the rounds page. If I wanted to change the round itself, I would just do that on the rounds page. What we're doing is only affecting bout order within a round. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the prefix for that?
The prefix, I don't know. I think that might relate to what gets printed. I think there's a prefix you can put on there. But honestly, the honest answer is I don't know. Never used it. But I can check for you.
Yeah, okay. Just send me a ticket.
Yeah, there you go. I will. But that's what that bout order. It's again very uncommon, but there are situations where if you need to do something really unique, something kind of way out of the norm, this might be a place where you could do it. Again, I would always suggest coming to the testing site to mess around with that.
Yeah, okay.
I think somebody else was asking a question there too while we were talking.
Okay.
My question is, once you save this, do you have to go back to your number scheme and reapply it, or when you hit save, it automatically does it because it's just causing that bout to wrestle earlier?
You would need to reapply your number scheme. That's probably a good point. Anytime you make a change to a bracket, to a round, any of those sorts of things, if you want new numbers on your charts, you're going to have to apply the number scheme again. That goes for like if you rebuild a bracket. If any of you have ever done that, you know when you build your brackets, you number them. Even if you put them up on the wall or whatever the case might be. Even if you change one bracket, rebuild one bracket, you'll notice that those bout numbers go away. They get replaced with the dashes or whatever. You just need to reapply those number schemes, and that's where the freeze, unfreeze scenarios come in. And that will definitely depend on where you're at in your tournament. But no, you'd need to reapply your number schemes if you made changes here. Any other questions that come up here?
I have a question, but it's not related to this course.
Okay. Let's do this. Let's, if everybody else is done with their questions here, just for probably the integrity of the video in itself, when people come back to watch it, then we can just stop the recording and I can stick around and answer that for you. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, just let me know.
That sounds good. I got another question, so
okay.
After you close it.
All right. So if there aren't any more questions related to the rounds page, I will go ahead and shut the recording down. Does that sound all right with everyone?
That's
yes.
good.
Very good.